What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Now I'm very excited for the upcoming project because recently I just bought a new garage. It's a brand new building, so it's just completely empty, nothing in there, and the plan is to set up a nice shop, or at least a nice place to, fix my car or whatever. Now it's a pretty small garage, it's only around 32 square meters, but the good thing about it is that the ceiling is pretty high, so I'm gonna build a loft. Now I want the loft to be pretty strong and robust, and since I'm a welder, I am gonna make the legs out of steel, but I'm gonna use wooden structural beams for the loft itself. So yeah, I'm just gonna head out to the shop and build the legs, and then after that we will go to the garage and put everything together. Alright, so I'm at the shop. I'm gonna get straight to it. So what you're looking at here are some pre-made leftover parts from some other project that are actually ideal for this project as well, so I decided to use them to save some time. And I'm basically just MIG welding some small tubes onto the plates here. And this is the lowest part of the legs, so these holes in each corner are gonna be pretty handy to have in case I wanna bolt the whole thing to the floor. Now the legs will be height adjustable, so they will be a bit more complex than what I had in mind at first. And the reason for this is because concrete floors are never straight. At least not when you really need them to be, because there's always a slope towards a drain or whatever. And here I'm just test fitting the plates onto a threaded rod that I will explain later on in the video. So moving on to the main structure of the legs. It's a very robust material. I chose a 4mm thick, 90mm in diameter tubes. And here I'm just cleaning the sharp edges and prepare them for welding. Now it's always a good habit to chamfer the edges well before welding, especially when you're working on thick material, because that allows the weld to go much deeper into the material and therefore make a much stronger bond. Now here I'm making some plates that I will weld on the end of each leg, and they will have a big hole in the middle, and you will see why in just a minute. And here I'm marking with a center punch where I want the holes to be, so that the drill bit can have something to follow. Otherwise the drill bit can slide all over your workpiece and result in your hole being way off. Another good habit is always starting with a smaller drill bit and then slowly work your way up to the size you need. That way it's much less stress on the drill bit, your hole gets more accurate, and most importantly you decrease the chances of injury. And that being said, I only pre-drilled with an 8mm drill bit and then went straight to the 20mm, so I'm not a good example of this good habit that I was mentioning. But I was in a hurry and, the hole doesn't need to be super accurate, but I still would recommend doing at least one in between size, maybe 15 or 16, before going to the 20. But yeah. Also, using a lot of oil when drilling with big drill bits like this is crucial, because it increases the lifespan of the drill bit a lot. And it also makes cutting a lot easier, of course. Okay, so here I'm doing the same routine, cleaning the edges before welding. And normally I would use a big countersink tool to clean holes like this, but I didn't find one large enough, so an angle grinder will have to do. And here I'm welding these big 20mm nuts straight over the holes. And the reason for this is so that the threaded rods that I showed you earlier can go all the way through the plates there and into the legs. And that's part of the height adjustment. And you will see more of that at the end of the video when I assemble everything. Now these nuts are galvanized, and it's never recommended to weld galvanized steel because it's not only super unhealthy if you inhale the smoke, but it can be also very hard to weld, especially if it's a thick layer. But these nuts are electroplated, and that's the thinnest layer of zinc, so it's very easy to go straight through it with a MIG welder like I'm using. But if I would be using hot dip galvanized nuts, where the layer is much thicker, then I would definitely grind the layer off first before welding. Or you can buy another type of nuts that have black oxide coating instead of zinc layer, And those are the easiest to weld for sure, because the layer is so thin. And the nuts are also much stronger, with a tensile strength of 10.9 or 12.9. Now what I'm doing here is something that I wanted to skip at first to save time, but then I realized it would look pretty ugly, so I decided to do it anyway. And that's basically turning these square plates into round plates, because I will be welding these onto the round tubes that I'm using for the legs. So yeah, it's a better match to have them all round, I suppose. And the reason why I wanted to skip this is because the plates are 12mm thick, and there's 4 of them, so that means 16 corners that I had to cut off. And that took some time. I mean, I probably went with 5 or 6 cutting discs just for the corners, and that took some time, and the atmosphere in the room was pretty bad after this. And you can also see I had them a little bit oversized, just to make room for a nice and strong corner weld. Very nice. Alright, moving on to the other end of the legs. Now these plates will pretty much hold the whole frame of the loft, so they need to be pretty strong. And here you can see me doing the same thing again, marking with a center punch for the holes. And these holes will be for screws. But this time I'm not going to use a drill machine to make the holes. I'm going to use something much cooler and quicker that I should have used for the other holes as well. But I totally forgot about it. A hydraulic punch machine. Now these machines are absolutely fantastic, and they should be in every metal fab shop around the world. But unfortunately they are pretty expensive, so that's probably why you don't see them everywhere. But these machines are multi-use, and you can do a lot more than just punching holes. You know, on the side you can cut angle bars, rods, flat bars, and even on the other end of the machine you can cut corners out of sheet metal, for example, if you're gonna build a tray or something. So a great machine to have, for sure. Okay, so this is something I decided to add on last minute. It's some pre-made brackets that I had left over from some other job. And they're gonna help a lot when I assemble the joists onto the legs, because I'm doing this solo, so it's gonna be a bit of a challenge. But they pretty much just prevent the joist from falling off the edge. And also they have holes in them, so I can, you know, put some extra screws in there. Now this connection will have the most stress on it, so that's why I'm fully welding it to make it as strong as possible. Here I'm just using a chisel to clean the spatter. I usually choose to do it that way instead of using anti-spatter spray, for example, because those tend to leave an oily surface, so then I would have to grab a cloth and wipe the oil off, so it probably takes the same amount of time. But if I would be making like 100 legs, then I would probably use the spray instead. But anyway, now all the welding is pretty much complete, and the legs are looking really strong and robust, so I probably won't have any trust issues with these in the future. And then the last thing is cutting this 20mm threaded rod into 4 pieces, one for each leg, and these will be on the lowest part of the leg to adjust the height. Okay, so now I'm at the garage, and the last thing to do with the legs is assembling the height adjustment. And then I will also give the bottom plates a nice paint job, but I decided to leave the rest of the legs just raw steel. Now I want to give a quick shout out to this brand Rust-Oleum for making the best spray cans ever. I've been using these for 15 years at least, and they are far better than any other brand I've ever tried. Never get clogged up, and the pressure is very high, and yeah, just absolutely sticks onto any material, so highly recommend. Also, you should always use a primer before your top coat when painting steel. Otherwise the paint is gonna come off pretty easily, and especially if you're painting something that's gonna be outside. Now this primer from Rust-Oleum is very quick to dry, takes about 10-15 minutes, then you can go another round or simply go straight to your top coat. Now here I've cut a welding rod into 4 pieces and I'm creating these hooks so I can just hang the plates up to dry, and that way I can put the top coat on in a single round, because the top coat takes a much longer time to dry. It takes about 5 to 10 hours to fully dry. So I didn't want to have to wait that long 2 times. 1 is enough. On the other hand, it probably wasn't necessary to put the top coat on underneath the plates as well, because it won't be visible anyway, and the primer alone would have been good enough corrosion resistance. And here I'm just emptying the can on my dip bar that I made years ago, because the plan is to mount it somewhere in the garage. Okay, so funny thing, I really thought that this cardboard here was enough to shield the floor, and you know, I could see a little bit, you know, reddish color on the floor, so I was like, it's no big deal. But until I removed the cardboard, and I could probably see that I really fucked up. But luckily, this paint is, you know, it's already dried up in the air when it's on the floor, before it hits the floor, sorry. So I can just, yeah, you can see. So it's not into the concrete. So I really thought that I had to re-grind or re-sand the whole floor to get this off. Okay, now I'm gonna set the correct height for the legs by installing the height adjustment. And I'm gonna set all the legs the same height, and then afterwards, when the whole loft is finished, I'm gonna fine adjust each leg and put a level on top of the loft to get everything in perfect level. Now you might be wondering why I want to be able to adjust the legs, you know, to this amount, because the floor can't possibly be that bad. And of course not. The reason is because the ceiling is only about 4.2 meters max, meaning I have to sacrifice a lot of height, at least on top of the loft. So, but I don't want it to be, you know, unnecessarily low. So I really have to find the exact sweet spot. So that's why I have this room for adjustment. Alright guys, that's it for this part. Now don't forget to click on part 2, where the real challenge begins, where I bring in all the wood material and start building the actual loft. A lot of fun things happen in that part, so make sure to check that out, and hopefully I will see you there. Okay, bye.